Welcome to Moonlight Mysteries, a calm space for long, research-rich mysteries. If you enjoy these sleepy deep dives, please like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss new episodes. If you'd like to support the channel, a quick comment with your favorite moment helps more people find us. Now settle in, dim the lights, and let's begin. Winter Folklore, a journey through global winter folklores. The longest night. A hush fall over a snowy winter night. The air is crisp, and white stars glitter like frost. In the stillness, families everywhere gather by warm fires, sharing age-old stories as the world outside lies silent and cold. Winter's longest nights have always been a time of mystery and wonder. Through the ages, people have lit candles in bonfires, feasted and told tales, all to beckon the sun's return. On these darkest nights, we begin our journey through a storybook of global Christmas and winter folklore, turning the pages gently from one culture's enchanted winter tale to the next. Imagine ancient Scandinavia in midwinter. The sun barely rises above the horizon, leaving long polar night skies shimmering with ribbons of northern lights. Here, the Norse folk celebrate Yule, a festive tide marking the winter solstice. Inside a great timber hall, Vikings toast cups of honeyed ale to honor the gods. The word Yule itself means a midwinter festival predating Christianity. At the heart of the feast, a massive Yule log burns brightly in the hearth, its flames dancing and casting flickering shadows on the walls. This log is decorated with runes and evergreens, and, according to custom, will be kept smoldering for 12 nights. Everyone gathers around its warmth, sharing in its light. The crackle of the fire mingles with laughter and the notes of ancient songs. Outside, evergreens, fir, holly, ivy, deck the halls, symbolizing life that endures the snow. Even as revelers eat and drink, there is a reverent mood. It is the winter solstice, the longest night, and they know the sun will slowly return after this dark turning point. Under the cold sky, it's said that the god Odin roams the midwinter world. Some of the Norse look warily upward. They whisper that on Yule, the wild hunt rides across the starry night. In the howling wind, they imagine Odin flying by, leading a spectral procession of souls. The All-Father has a wide-brimmed hat and a gray beard, and astride his 8-legged steed, Sleipnir, he gallops through the clouds. But far from fearful, children leave offerings of hay or carrots in their boots for Odin's horse, hoping the benevolent god will drop a small gift in return. Indeed, on this sacred night, Odin is said to carry a satchel of treasures, a distant echo of the jolly gift bringers to come. The boundaries between worlds feel thin as families remember their departed loved ones by candlelight. Grandparents murmur during that Yule. Friendly spirits of ancestors might even draw near to join the feast. And so the living and the dead are reunited in warmth and memory as the long night passes. In a corner of the hall, a platter of apples, nuts, and spiced cakes is laid out. Treats for the Nisa or the Tomta, the little gnome-like guardian of the farm. Everyone knows to leave him his favorite gift, a bowl of yogurt, rich Christmas porridge topped with butter. If treated kindly, the house spirit will protect the homestead and animals through the harsh winter. But woe to anyone who forgets his butter. One old legend tells of a mischievous farm girl who once hid the butter at the bottom of the porridge bowl as a prank. The resident Nisa, finding no butter on top, was so offended that he stomped off to punish the household, only to realize the butter had been there all along, buried in the porridge. Remorseful, the Nisa returned with a stolen cow from a neighbor's barn to replace the one he slew in anger. Nowadays, the tale is told with a chuckle, a reminder never to skimp on the Nisa's portion of Christmas butter. And so, on Yule night each year, a steaming bowl of creamed rice pudding is set out in the barn with a pat of golden butter melting at its center. If you peek out after midnight, you might spy a small bearded fellow in a red cap, happily lapping up his treat by the lantern light. Satisfied and honored, the Tomta will continue his nightly rounds, feeding the horses, watching over sleeping children, before vanishing with a contented hum. From the Norse Yule celebration comes the tradition of the 12 nights of feasting and merriment. For 12 days, ending around the New Year, no work was to be done. Instead, there were continual gatherings, storytelling, and yes, more toasting of ale and mead. It is from this that the idea of the 12 days of Christmas later evolved. During these nights, each evening held special significance. One night might be devoted to games, another to remembering the family's ancestors, another to rituals ensuring good harvest. The whole community took part in this extended holiday, filling the deep winter with camaraderie. And as the Yule log burned, they believed its light scared away any trolls or malevolent spirits lurking in the darkness. A piece of the charred log would be kept all year for luck, then used to kindle next year's log, symbolizing continuity and protection. While the Norse huddled against Arctic winds, far to the south, the ancient Romans also know how to banish winter's gloom. Turn the page and we find ourselves in a sun-baked city of marble columns, Rome, at the height of the Saturnalia festival. Though the air is cold by Roman standards, the streets are anything but quiet. They are alive with carnival energy. It is mid-December in the 3rd century AD, and the week-long Saturnalia celebration is underway. Golden lamplights spill from windows, and garlands of evergreen bough and holly deck every doorway. Under flickering torchlight, you might see a most curious role reversal taking place. Dignified senators wearing silly caps, and servants trading jokes with their masters. During Saturnalia, social roles are playfully overturned. Masters serve their slaves at lavish banquets, and slaves are given license to carouse and speak freely without fear. A mock king, often a lowly servant, is elected as the Lord of Misrule to preside over rivalries and cause good-natured mischiefs. Everywhere rings the cheerful cry, Io Saturnalia, the seasonal greeting of goodwill. In a patrician villa, a family gathers around an altar to offer gratitude to Saturn, the god of agriculture, for the bounty of the previous harvest. They present winter fruits, honeyed wine, and little clay figurines as offerings. Once the brief rite is done, the party truly begins. Children run laughing through columns as their parents toss them toy gifts called sigillaria, little wax or pottery dolls in candles, exchanged to honor the tradition of gift-giving at Saturnalia's end. In the forum, stalls brim with confectionery and trinkets for presents. One boy excitedly shows his friends a tiny statue of Saturn he received, while another child lights a new wax taper, enjoying how its flame chases away the twilight. For Romans, candles symbolize the returning sun after solstice and are a favorite gift to exchange. As evening deepens, the city swells with joyous noise. Dice games and singing spill into the streets, and an impromptu parade of revelers dances past, wearing masks of satyrs and playing flutes. The normally reserved Romans have given themselves over to laughter, costumes, feasting, and friendship. It feels almost like a warm Mediterranean version of a Christmas party. Indeed, Saturnalia later leaves a lasting mark on Christmas celebrations. The merriment, the feast, the light and greenery, and the spirit of equality and charity during the season all echo this lively Roman holiday. For now, though in our storybook journey, we linger in the glow of oil lamps as a Roman family raises cups of spiced wine, toasting Bonum Diem Saturnalia, Happy Saturnalia, in wishing each other prosperity and light. Not far away in time and spirit, another festival of light unfolds in the ancient Middle East. Turn the page to a Persian's winter night over 2,000 years ago. It is Shab-e Yalda, the night of Yalda in Old Iran. Outside, the desert air is biting cold and the darkness long, but inside a cozy home, the atmosphere is warm and bright. An extended family has gathered together in a carpeted room. They sit on soft cushions around a low table, piled high with colorful fruits and nuts. At the center is a platter of pomegranates and watermelons, their juicy red flesh a vivid reminder of summer's sun. Tonight, these fruits are not only a treat, but a promise. Their crimson colors symbolize the dawn's rosy light in the glow of life, assuring everyone that even the longest night will end. Yule night is the winter solstice celebration, marking the victory of light over darkness. As the longest night of the year, it heralds the gradual lengthening of days, a rebirth of the sun. Lamplights flicker on the face of young and old. They smile as an elder opens a leather-bound book of poetry. It is the cherished tradition on Yule to recite verses of the beloved 14th century poet Hafez. The elders chant melodic lines, and the family listens in reverent silence to the ancient words. After each poem, they all take turns performing Fali Hafiz, a form of divination. One by one, they make a secret wish, and then randomly open the book of Hafiz to see what advice or answer the poetry offers for the year ahead. Laughter and knowing nods follow as the cryptic lines are interpreted. Nearby, crackling in a brazier, pieces of dried sandalwood and juniper release a fragrant smoke. The rising wisps are said to carry away negative forces. In older times, on this night, people might have kept a vigil until dawn, burning fires through the darkness to ward off evil and ensure the sun's rebirth. Over time, that vigil transformed into this joyful family gathering, a celebration of light's triumph and the warmth of kinship. Mother pours hot black tea into tiny crystal glasses and passes around a Yule, a mix of toasted walnuts, pistachios, dried figs, and golden raisins, saved especially for Yule. Children nibble on the sweet nuts, while grandfathers crack jokes and reminisce about Yules of their youth. A teenage girl carefully peels a bright orange to release its citrusy perfume. Oranges are a modern addition, but their color too evokes the sun. There is love and togetherness in the room. Even neighbors may drop by to share in the snacks and storytelling, for all are welcome on this night of community. Past midnight, as the ember glow and people grow pleasantly drowsy, someone begins to tell one of the oldest Yule legend, the tale of Mithra, ancient Persian god of light. According to lore, Yule marks the birth date of Mithra, who was born at dawn after the longest night, bringing light and truth to the world. The listeners picture Mithra's first ray overcoming darkness, much as their own sun will do in a few hours. Though the Zoroastrian religion that venerated Mithra is long gone, the symbolism lives on. Finally, as the first faint blush of dawn appears on the horizon, the family cheers softly. They have made it through the darkest night of the year together, They offer thanks for the returning sun, and one by one they drift off to bed with hopeful hearts. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, another family marks the solstice in their own way. In a small village in China, it is the time of the Dongzhi festival, the winter solstice celebration that usually falls on December 21st or 22nd. On this cold winter evening, red paper lanterns are hung outside homes, glowing like warm little suns in the darkness. Generations of a Chinese family gather around a round table for a special reunion meal. At the center is a steaming pot of tangyuan, brightly colored sweet rice dumpling swimming in hot ginger broth. Each rice ball is soft and snow white or pink, symbolizing wholeness and unity. They are prepared and eaten together to bring the family good fortune in another year of togetherness. Grandmother gently ladles out bowls of the syrupy soup, placing a few chewy rice dumplings in each. The grandchildren grin in anticipation. They love the mildly sweet treat and the fun of the tradition. As everyone savors the tangyuan, the family elders explain to the little ones why Dongzhi is important. After tonight, a grandfather says, each day will have more light. Winter's worst is over. We are all a year older and wiser. In fact, there is an old saying that the winter solstice is as important as the new year. To mark this turning point, relatives from near and far have come home. The aroma of ginger, brown sugar, and rice fills the house, mingling with the scent of pine and dry chrysanthemum used in the winter teas. Some family members step outside into the crisp night to burn joss sticks and offer prayers of thanksgiving for surviving the year's darkest day. In the sky above, the same bright star twinkle that the Norse and Persians looked upon. But here perhaps one particularly brilliant star reminds them of the celestial dragon's eye. In Chinese folklore, the winter solstice was the day when the balance of yin, darkness, and yang, light, shifts, an auspicious moment. After dinner, the family gathers around the stove for warmth and shares stories. The children's favorite is the legend of the Nian monster. They listen wide-eyed as their father recounts how, long ago, a fearsome beast named Nian would emerge on the last night of the lunar year, terrorizing villages until people discovered Nian's weaknesses. Loud firecrackers, red banners, and bright lanterns scare the monster away, and ever since, those have been used to celebrate the new year. Though this particular legend belongs to Lunar New Year, not Dongzhi, the little ones never tire of hearing how noise and color can drive off scary things in the dark. It helps them feel safe on long nights. Their mother then tells a gentler tale, that of a three-legged crow who carries the sun in its beak, an ancient myth explaining the sun's movement. One child sleepily imagines a magical crow flying the sun back into the sky tomorrow. By the time the family has finished a second round of Tianyuan, there is a feeling of optimism in the air. The youngest climbs into her grandfather's lap and is delighted when he declares that because she's eaten her fill of dumplings, she's now grown 1 year older. The family laughs softly. Outside, the winter wind may blow cold, but their hearts are warm. In many East Asian cultures, this quiet festival of Dongzhi embodies the simple joy of turning towards brighter days with one's loved ones. And so, across distant lands, people rejoice in the return of the light, from the Norse lands to Rome, to Persia, to China. Each culture, in its own beautiful way, greets the solstice with ceremonies of hope. Under the same heavens, bonfires, candles, and lanterns glow, dispelling the dark. Families feast on traditional foods that symbolize life, luck, and warmth. They sing songs and recite poems. They'd exchange humble gifts and kind wishes. Though separated by great geography and time, all these celebrations share a common thread: the resilience of the human spirit through winter's chill, in an unshakable faith that dawn will come. If you listen closely on a silent solstice midnight, you might also hear echoes of those ancient voices, a Viking toast, a Roman cheer, a Persian poem, a Chinese blessing, mingling in the starry sky. Perhaps you can even imagine, in a far northern sky, a sleek raven flying with a glowing orb in its beak. There's a Haida legend from the Pacific Northwest coast that tells how Raven once stole the sun from a selfish keeper and released it into the sky, bringing light to the world. In that tale, Raven transformed himself into a tiny speck to slip into the chief's house that held the celestial body. With clever tricks, he seized the sun, the moon, and the stars that were locked away, and he set them free for all people. As the sun illuminated the cold, dark world for the first time, Raven's feathers were scorched black, which is why, they say, all ravens are black to this day. But Ravens did not mind, for he had given a priceless gift. From then on, light would always triumph over darkness. The people would never again live in total night. It is a fitting myth to remember on the solstice, when the sun's rebirth is at hand. And so ends our first chapter of Winter Nights, ancient celebrations of the longest night, each a story of light renewed. Now, with our hearts cheered by the glow of these festivals, we gently turn the page to find new visitors arriving out of the winter sky, kindly figures bearing gifts, and the promise of generosity that defines the holiday spirit. Saintly gift bearers of winter, The scene changes to a quiet European village street on a frosty December evening many centuries ago. A bright half-moon hangs above, and chimneys puff smoke into the starry dark. In one small cottage, children are bustling about excitedly before bed, for tonight is St. Nicholas Eve, and they have important preparations to make. Little shoes are polished and placed neatly by the door or on the windowsill, and within each shoe, the children tuck handfuls of hay, carrots, and sugar lumps. These are the treats for St. Nicholas's horse, or perhaps his donkey, depending on local tradition. For the children know the kindly saint will pass by during the night. Their mother smiles as she helps her youngest set out a tiny shoe, whispering, "If you've been good, St. Nicholas will leave you something special by morning." The children climb into bed, trying their best to fall asleep, despite the excitement fluttering in their chests. They imagine the sound of hoofbeats on the road, or the distant jingle of a bell. In the hush of midnight, a cloaked figure makes his way through the snow. He is St. Nicholas, known as the patron saint of children, and on this night, his feast day's eve, he travels far and wide to bring joy. He is often depicted as an elderly bearded man in a bishop's robes, with a mitre upon his head, and a gold crozier staff in his hand. Perhaps on this occasion, to be less formal, he wears a heavy hooded cloak over his robes to keep out the cold. By his side walks his faithful steed, its breath steaming in the chill air. St. Nicholas pauses at each home, where a lantern glows outside, signifying children lives there. With a hearty but soft chuckle, he gathers goodies from the wicker basket slung over the horse's back. Into each waiting shoe or stocking, he slips small presents, a wooden toy, a handful of hazelnut, perhaps a gingerbread cookie, or a bright orange, a rare winter fruit, and a luxurious treat symbolizing the bags of gold from one of his most famous miracles. He takes the carrots left for his horse and in exchange leaves sugary marzipan candies shaped like carrots. A little thank you from the grateful animal. Then St. Nick moves on, the hem of his robe swishing, leaving only a trail of boot prints and the faint scent of cloves and myrrh in the air. The legend of St. Nicholas dates back to a real 4th century bishop of Myra in modern-day Turkey, renowned for his compassion and secret gift-giving. Over time, story of his generosity grew into cherished folklore. The most famous tale tells how Nicholas saved 3 poor sisters from despair. Their father, having no dowry money, feared he must sell them into servitude. But on 3 successive nights, Nicholas surreptitiously dropped a purse of gold coins down the chimney of their house. The gold landed in the stockings or shoes left drying by the hearth. Thanks to these secret gifts, each daughter had a dowry and could marry, and they were rescued from a terrible fate. On the 3rd night, the father managed to catch their mysterious benefactor. Nicholas humbly begged him to tell no one, wishing only to help anonymously. But the story spread, and thus the tradition was born of gift-giving in Nicholas's name. To this day, oranges or gold-covered chocolate coins are given to children to represent the saint's gold, and the custom of hanging stockings by the fireplace originates in this miraculous chimney gift. As our narrative unfolds, the old bishop's simple act of kindness will echo through many cultures, evolving and taking on new forms, from Santa Claus to other gift bearers, but always the heart of it remains the same. In many European countries, December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, is when children originally received their holiday presents rather than Christmas Day. So on the night of December 5th, St. Nicholas Eve, the saint makes his rounds. In the Netherlands and Belgium, for instance, this gentle bishop is known as Sinterklaas. Dutch children, even today, anticipate his arrival on December 5th. Riding on a snow-white horse, they sing traditional Sinterklaas songs and leave out hay and a bowl of water for his horse, along with drawings or letters for the saints. According to Dutch lore, Sinterklaas doesn't come from the North Pole, but rather sails on a steamboat from Spain, arriving in mid-November with great fanfare. Dressed in a crimson bishop's robe, he processes through the streets, welcomed by cheering crowds. On the eve of the 5th, he travels rooftop by rooftop, listening for the songs children sing by the fireplace. In each shoe, he deposits treats like peppernoten, spiced cookie, and chocolate initials, the first letter of the child's name cast in delicious chocolate. Dutch families awaken on Paasavond, Presents evening, to find bags of gifts ostensibly left by Sinterklaas. The joy and excitement mirror Christmas morning in other parts of the world, but with a unique early Dutch twist. In Germany, Austria, and neighboring regions, the night of December 5th is also eagerly awaited. Children cling their boots and put them outside the door, whispering hopes that Nicholas would fill them with candies and fruit by dawn. And indeed, St. Nicholas comes, but in these countries, he often does not travel alone. Here we meet some of the most intriguing figures of winter folklore, the companions of St. Nicholas, who embody the naughty or nice duality of the season. For every kindly St. Nick rewarding good children, there seems to be a darker counterpart charged with scaring or punishing the naughty ones. In parts of Germany, a figure called Knecht Ruprecht, farmhand Rupert, might trudge alongside St. Nicholas. He's a stern-looking man, clad in tattered brown or black robes, carrying a sack of coal and a bundle of birch switches. As Nicholas hands out oranges and gingerbread, Ruprecht might quiz the children on their catechism or prayers. Those who can recite a verse or say their prayers receive a small reward. Those who cannot, or who have been misbehaving, might get a playful tap from Ruprecht's switch or a lump of coal in their stocking. Seid ihr auch schon brav gewesen? Have you been good? He growls, and the children nod earnestly with wide eyes. Yet despite his gruff manner, Knekkeprecht is ultimately a protective figure. He ensures that St. Nicholas's benevolence is not taken for granted. After questioning, he often gives out nuts and apples himself, showing that his intent is to encourage goodness, not to truly harm. In alpine villages of Austria in the German Alps, on the eve of December 5th, the serene scene of Nicholas's visit takes a wild turn as the sound of clanking chains and cowbells echoes off the snowy peaks. From the darkness leaps the Krampus, perhaps the most infamous of St. Nick's companions. Krampus is a fearsome yet oddly beloved creature, half goat, half demon, covered in shaggy fur, with curly horn, a lolling red tongue, and a sharp fang. He carries rusty chains that he rattles in a bundle of birch sticks called a ruten. According to an old alpine lore, Krampus travels with St. Nicholas, or sometimes on his own on Krampusnacht, the night of December 5th, to deal with naughty children. While St. Nick hands out presents to the well-behaved, Krampus switches the misbehaviors and threatens to toss especially bad kids into the basket he wears on his back, in order to cart them away to his lair. In the most extreme legends, even to the underworld, parents for generations have playfully warned, "Behave or the Krampus will get you." However, what sounds terrifying is tempered by the knowledge that it's all in holiday jest. In practice, Krampusnacht has become a time of rowdy fun for adults and older teens as much as a morality tale for children. Picture a small Austrian town on December 5th. As dusk falls, a troop of young men from the village don elaborate Krampus costumes, heavy furs, grotesque masks, and cowbells strapped to their backs that jingle and clank with each step. They parade through the streets in what is called a Krampuslauf, Krampus run, waving their switches in the air. The leader let out a guttural roar, and the others answer with menacing growls, sending delighted shivers through the gathered crowd of onlookers. Children shriek and giggle, hiding behind their parents' legs as a Krampus dances near, rattling chains. One particularly brave little boy, face sticky with a candy St. Nicholas had given him earlier, sticks his tongue out at the monster in defiance, and the Krampus, breaking character with a wink, merely tussles the boy's hair before moving on. After their rambunctious procession, the Krampuses meet up with a stately figure of St. Nicholas in the town square. In a symbolic little ceremony, Nicholas tames the wild creatures, and they all go on to the next village house together. At each doorstep, Nicholas enters to give small gifts and blessings, while the Krampus figure might stay by the door, peeking in to wag a clawed finger at any child whom parents wish to gently chasten. More often than not, though, by evening's end, the children have overcome their fear and are tugging at the Krampus's fur or posting for a silly photo with the beast. It's a scare that quickly melts into laughter. The adults, too, enjoy the chance to indulge in some midwinter revelry. Many a Krampus participant is fortified by a bit of hot spice schnapps to keep warm and merry during the escapade. Thus the tradition, going back perhaps to pre-Christian pagan rites, lives on. A little touch of the wild in an otherwise gentle season. Another such companion is Belschnickel, known in the Palatinate region of Germany and among Pennsylvania Dutch communities in America. If you were a child in a 19th century Pennsylvania farmhouse, you might recall a cold December night when the door burst open and in stomped a strange, disheveled figure. He wore a tattered fur coat, turned inside out, streaked his face with soot, and carried a hickory switch in one hand and a sack bulging with treats in the other. This was Belschnickel, come calling a couple of weeks before Christmas. He would rap his stick on the floor and, in a gruff voice, ask if the children had been obedient and hard-working. Good children had nothing to fear. Belschnickel would reach into his sack and throw handfuls of nuts, candies, and perhaps small cakes onto the floor, laughing as the youngsters scramble in excitement. But if a child had been misbehaving or lazy, they might feel a light sting on their backside as Belschnickel's switch reminded them to behave. In some accounts, if kids rushed too greedily for the candy on the floor, Belschnickel's switch was quick to correct their manners. The presence of this stern yet generous character was both thrilling and a bit intimidating, exactly as intended. After scattering his goodies and giving his lecture, Belschnickel often accepted a glass of ale or a warm meal from the parents, then went on his way, bells jingling faintly into the night. In the weeks that followed, children would remember his warning and strive to be good, hoping that Santa Claus, a figure who came later to those communities, would reward them on Christmas. The name Belschnickel likely comes from Belschnickel, Fur Nicholas, highlighting his fur-clad appearance. He is another manifestation of that ancient idea, winter's gift bringer, carrying a touch of strictness to encourage good behavior. In France and parts of French-speaking Europe, stories persist of Père Fouettard, literally Father Whipper, a dark-clad boogeyman who travels with Saint Nicholas. According to lore in the region of Alsace-Lorraine, Père Fouettard was a wicked butcher who once lured 3 children into his shop. In the grisly tale, he killed and salted them, but Saint Nicholas miraculously arrived and resurrected the children, forgiving the butcher who repented. The repentant man then became Nicholas's partner as Père Fouettard, tasked with doling out punishment to bad kids to atone for his sins. In modern portrayals, Père Fouettard appears in a black robe with a soot-smeared face, carrying a whip or switch. When good friend children received gifts from St. Nicholas on December 6th, naughty ones might receive a visit from glowering Père Fouettard instead, though today it's largely an empty thread used in jest. And in Italy, there is a similar figure of an old woman who punished bad kids, but she has a much more benevolent counterpart in the Christmas season, whom we'll meet later. For now, having encountered these captivating yet fearsome companions of Saint Nick, let's return to the main gift giver himself. As centuries passed, the image of Saint Nicholas evolved and merged with other cultural threads, eventually giving rise to the universally recognized figure of Santa Claus, the jolly old man in red who brings gifts on Christmas Eve. How did we get from the stately 4th century bishop to a plump, twinkle-eyed elf driving a flying sleigh? The transformation is a story of folklore blending with literature and a dash of commercial art, and it spans many lands and many years. In England, parallel to the veneration of Saint Nicholas on the continent, there grew the personification of the holiday known as Father Christmas. Unlike Saint Nicholas, Father Christmas was not originally a gift bringer to children, but rather a symbol of Christmas cheer, a merry gent who embodied the spirit of feasting, joy, and good fellowship. By the 17th century, English literature depicted Sir Christmas, or Old Father Christmas, as a jolly, large man, sometimes wearing a green or fur-lined robe, crowned with holly, and holding a bowl of wassail. He arrived in midwinter celebrations to encourage people to eat, drink, and be merry in the bleak cold. One could imagine him arriving at a Yuletide feast in an old manner, laughing a deep ho-ho-ho as he toasts the company with spiced wine. He brought no toys, but he brought the holiday mood itself. Over time, particularly by the Victorian era, Father Christmas became largely synonymous with the burgeoning Santa Claus figure, adopting the role of children's gift giver while retaining his name in Britain. Today, in the UK, Father Christmas simply means Santa, but echoes of his older incarnation remains in our collective imagination. He's the quintessential jovial host of the season, ensuring the hearth is warm and the table bountiful. Across the Atlantic, in the young United States, the legend of St. Nicholas or St. Nicolaus was carried by Dutch settlers to New York, formerly New Amsterdam. By the early 19th century, American writers and poets began to reinvent St. Nicholas in a distinctly American way. Washington Irving, in 1809, whimsically described a St. Nicholas who smoked a pipe and drove a wagon over the treetops. But the defining moment came in 1823, when an anonymous poem was published in a Troy, New York newspaper. Its title was A Visit from St. Nicholas, though you might know it by its famous first line, "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." In this enchanting poem, later attributed to Clement Clarke Moore, the modern Santa Claus took full form. The poem gave Santa many of the attributes we cherish today: a miniature sleigh led by 8 tiny reindeers bounding across the sky. Santa's entrance through the chimney, his pack full of toys, his red cheeks, chubby and plump appearance, the twinkle in his eye, and the bowl full of jelly laugh. He was portrayed not as a solemn bishop, but as a right jolly old elf, with a fur-trimmed suit, a pipe clenched in his teeth, and a merry demeanor. Crucially, this Santa came not on December 6th, but on Christmas Eve, shifting the gift-giving to the night of 24th. One can easily picture the scene from the poem. On Christmas Eve, while children sleep snug in their beds, a tiny sleigh swoops through the crisp night sky. The moonlight reflects off its silver runners as 8 reindeers, Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donder, and Blitzen, paw eagerly at the air. They alight on a snow-dusted rooftop, and out leaps Santa Claus. With a finger beside his nose, down the chimney he goes. A minute later, a rosy-faced man in a fur-lined red coat emerges from the fireplace, brushing a bit of soot off his broad shoulders. His eyes crinkle with kindness as he sits down, a sack overflowing with toys. In the hush of the living room, lit only by the faint glow of banked embers, and perhaps the tiny tinkle of a music box from his sack, Santa fills the hung stockings with treats, peppermint canes, oranges, little tin soldiers and dolls. Under the Christmas tree, a tradition which was itself newly popular in the 1800s, he arranges special surprises: a rocking horse for one child, a porcelain tea set for another. A curious kitten batting at a ribbon watches him unafraid. Santa lets out a gentle chuckle, ho ho ho, as he nibbles the mince pie and takes a sip of milk left out for him by thoughtful children. Then with a nod, he rises up the chimney magically, and in a twinkling, he's back on his sleigh. The reindeer take off, and before flying to the next house, Santa's voice is heard echoing through the night. Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night. It was the popularity of that poem and subsequent imagery by illustrators like Thomas Nast in the late 19th century that solidified the Santa Claus we recognize today. Nast's drawing in Harper's Weekly depicted Santa as a round, cheerful man with a full white beard, often wearing a red suit, sometimes stars and stripes in early versions, but later the classic red and white. He also gave Santa a home at the North Pole, elves as helpers, and a workshop of toys, all additions to the growing mythos. The name Santa Claus itself evolved from the Dutch Sinterklaas. By the early 20th century, Santa was globally known as the emblem of Christmas gift-giving. Despite the commercialization that would come, yes, even the Coca-Cola ads of the 1930s, that further cemented Santa's red suit and jovial image. At heart, Santa Claus carries forward the spirit of St. Nicholas, generosity, kindness, and the magic of making children feel loved. Around the world, he's known by many names: Père Noël in France, Babbo Natale in Italy, Weihnachtsmann in Germany, where he's more secular replacement for the traditional Christkind or Nicholas, Yule Lads in Iceland, Hoteosho in Japan, but the essence is remarkably similar. On Christmas Eve, he travels in secret, bringing gifts, inspiring wonder. Today, children in countless countries eagerly await Santa's midnight visit. They leave out not only stockings and shoes, but also snacks to refresh the jolly traveler. In the United States, it's often cookies and milk. British children might leave minced pies and a tot of sherry for Father Christmas, along with a carrot for Rudolph. In Australia, where Christmas comes in high summer, Santa might even appreciate a cold beer or some chilled fruit. In any case, come morning, the goodies are nibbled away and gifts have been appeared as if by magic. Proof that Santa, or one of his international aliases, stopped by while all were sleeping. Parents smile knowingly, and children's faces glow with excitement and gratitude. The ritual binds families in a yearly enchantment. As we muse on Santa Claus, we realize how many elements of early folklore weave through him. The flying reindeer recalls perhaps Odin's flying horse or Thor's goat chariot, reimagined in a whimsical way. The notion of a list of who's naughty or nice harks back to those companions like Krampus and Belschnickel, who differentiated the well-behaved from the poorly behaved. Yet Santa rolls both reward and mild punishment into one figure, leaving coal for the naughty, a much gentler corrective than a birch switch to be sure, and presents for the good. The tradition of coming down the chimney also appears in many older tales, not only Nicholas's gold purses, but also Italy's Befana and other folk characters who access homes through the hearth. In a way, Santa Claus is a patchwork quilt of global winter folklore, stitched together over time, trimmed with a border of modern imagination, and lying beneath that quilt is the enduring human hope that goodness is rewarded, that kindness and charity prevail during the season of giving. Our journey with the gift bearer does not end with Santa. As we turn the page, the focus shifts from the well-known North Pole dweller to other charming figures who bring gifts during winter in different parts of the world. Each has their own flavor of magic, yet all serve the same purpose: to delight children and spread the message of love and sharing. In Russia and many Eastern European countries, for instance, the role of holiday gift giver does not belong to St. Nicholas or Santa Claus, but to Grandfather Frost, known locally as Ded Moroz. Picture a snow-covered Russian village on New Year's Eve. The stars are glittering over the wintry landscape of birch trees and wooden cottages, with icing like frost on the windows. Inside one cottage, a family has decorated a beautiful New Year's tree. Since in Soviet time, religious Christmas was downplayed, the tradition shifted to New Year's. The tree is adorned with colorful glass baubles and a bright red star at its tip. Children dance around the tree, bundled in excitement despite the warmth of the parlor stove. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. 3 slow, heavy thumps. The door swings open to reveal Dead Morose himself, arriving in grandeur. He is an imposing yet comforting figure, tall and grandfatherly, with a long white beard that reaches his chest. He wears a floor-length coat of rich blue velvet, embroidered with silver snowflakes. Sometimes he might be in red or even icy white, but blue is common in Slavic depictions. In a matching round fur hat. In his hand he holds a carved magic staff, and over his shoulder is slung a huge sack of presents. Cries of joy rings out as the children rush to greet Dead Morose. But he is not alone. By his side stands his delightful granddaughter and helper, Snikorachka, the Snow Maiden. Snikorachka is depicted as a beautiful young girl with long blonde braid and sparkling blue eyes. She's dressed in a white fur-lined coat that shimmers with frost patterns, and on her head, a traditional headdress glitters with crystals. Snikorachka smiles warmly and carries a small box of special sweets. She is unique among world folklore characters, a maiden made of snow who, according to legend, came to life to experience human love and joy. In one Russian fairy tale, Snikorachka is the daughter of Father Frost in springtime, and she eventually melts when she discovers love, sacrificing herself with a gentle grace. But in modern New Year's tradition, she lives on eternally as Dead Morose, genial companion, symbolizing innocence and the fresh beauty of winter. Dead Morose and Snikorachka entered the cottage amid cheers. The old grandfather's laugh is deep and resonant as he greets everyone with a Happy New Year. He and Snikorachka often engage the children in playful conversation or riddles. "Have you behaved well this year?" Dead Morose asks, winking. The kids eagerly nod and perhaps perform a little song or dance to welcome him. In many communities, it's tradition that children should recite a short poem or sing a song for Dead Morose to earn their gifts. It adds to the fun and encourages artistry. Snikorachka claps along encouragingly. Once the performances are done, Dead Morose taps his magical staff on the floor. 1, 2, 3. And as if by enchantment, the New Year tree begins to twinkle with lights. Gasps of wonder fill the room at this small miracle. Now comes the moment everyone has been waiting for. Snikorachka takes presents from Dead Morose's sack and hands them out to the beaming children. There are beautifully wrapped boxes containing dolls, toy trains, books of fairy tales, perhaps a pair of new mittens lovingly knitted. For each child, Dead Morose has a kind word or a hearty pat on the back. Unlike Santa, who zooms by unseen, Dead Morose often delivers gifts in person at holiday parties or homes, so the children get to interact with him. It makes the experience all the more tangible. When all gifts are given, Dead Morose raises a glass of spiced cranberry Moore's juice in a toast with the grown-ups and wishes everyone health and prosperity. In the Soviet era, Dead Morose took on an even more central role in secular holiday celebrations. Since Christmas was banned, he became the star of New Year's. But far from being an atheistic invention, he is rooted in Slavic folklore as a winter wizard. His name means literally Grandfather Frost. In older rural tales imagined him as a cold-hearted frost demon at times, or as a benevolent patriarch of winter at other times. In one famous Russian fairy tale, recorded by Afanasyev, Dead Morose tests the kindness of a young girl who is left in the woods by a cruel stepmother. Because the girl is polite and sweet, even to the freezing cold, Father Frost spares her life and gifts her richly. When the greedy stepsister tries the same, her rudeness causes Frost to take her instead. Such stories underscore that Dead Morose, like winter itself, can be both fierce and generous, depending on how one approaches him. In modern tradition, we see only his jolly, generous side, the bringer of happiness to children. With gifts distributed and carols sung, Dead Morose and Snikarachka bid farewell. They have many more visits to make before the night is through. Thank you, Dedushka Morose, the family calls, and Snikarachka blows a kiss. Out into the snowy night they go, where a troika, a grand sleigh, drawn by 3 horses abreast, await them. The horses paw the snow eagerly, their breath misting in the air. Dead Morose, with a swirl of his blue coat, climbs aboard and calls out to them. Bells on the harness jingling, and the troika sweeps away over the field, carrying the 2 winter gift-bringers off under the moonlight. In the wake of their sled, frost patterns magically bloom on window panes, and stars seems to twinkle just a bit brighter. The children watch from the window until the sleigh is out of sight, then turn back to their new treasures, secure in the knowledge that they were visited by the real Dead Morose. In Spain, and across much of the Spanish-speaking world, a different set of visitors handles the gift-giving, not on Christmas, but on Epiphany Eve in early January. Instead of Santa, it's Los Tres Reyes Magos, the 3 wise men, who brings presents to children on January 5th night, in time for Epiphany, Dia de Reyes King's Day, on January 6th. According to Christian tradition, the 3 magi, wise kings, traveled from afar to bring gifts to the infant Jesus, and in symbolic echo, they now travel to each home to bring gifts to all children. In cities like Madrid or Mexico City, grand parades called cabalgatas on January 5th feature floats carrying actors dressed as Melchior, Gaspar, and Balthazar, the 3 kings in splendid robes, tossing sweets to crowds of eager children. Kids at home prepare for Las Reyes by placing out their polished shoes, just as for St. Nicholas, often on a balcony or under the Christmas tree, to be filled with treats by morning. They also leave out snacks, not cookies for Santa, but perhaps almond nougat for the kings, and importantly, water and hay or oats for the camels or horses that carry the kings. In some families, a glass of cognac or wine is left as well, to refresh those royal gift givers after their long journey from the Orient. On the night of January 5th, once children are asleep, the three kings make their mystical rounds. One can imagine them in rich silks and turbans, quietly stepping into each home, perhaps by the light of the Star of Bethlehem guiding them. Melchior, traditionally the eldest with a flowing white beard, carries a sack of toys. Gaspar, middle-aged and auburn-haired, has baskets of candies. Balthazar, often depicted as young and black-skinned, brings parcels of clothing or useful gifts. By whatever magic they possess, they fill each shoe with presents small and large, tailored to each child's wish, written in letters to them days before. A little boy might awake to find a wooden sword and shield by his shoes. A little girl, perhaps a doll or a new dress, and chocolates for both. If a child has misbehaved, Spanish lore says the kings might leave a lump of coal. But these days, it's usually a lump of candy coal made of sugar or chocolate, a gentle reminder with a sweet twist. In many Spanish homes on Epiphany morning, you'll find people enjoying a special ringed-shaped cake, roscon de reyes, often with a tiny figurine of a king, for luck, and a dry bean, for whoever gets the bean a playful bad luck. This cake is part of the tradition, but the real excitement for children is seeing what Los Reyes Magos have brought. The three kings embody a link to the nativity story, keeping the religious aspect of Christmas alive in cultures where Santa Claus might be secondary import. Yet, for the children, it's all part of the same season of miracles, be it Santa's reindeer or King Balthazar's camel. The wonder of gift appearing as if by magic endures. Wondrous winter spirits and creatures. As much as holiday season is filled with benevolent gift givers, it is also alive with a cast of fantastical winter spirits, eerie visitors, and merry tricksters who emerge in the dark night. These characters, sometimes spooky, sometimes comical, add depth and spice to winter folklore. They remind us that winter, with its howling winds and long shadows, can stir the imagination towards mystery as well as warmth. In this chapter of our journey, we meet the snow queens and crones, goblins and witches, and even a ghostly horse, all of whom come out to play or pray during the Yuletide season. High in the snow-laden mountains and dense evergreen forest of Europe, people long told tales of strange beings roaming the 12 nights between Christmas and Epiphany. These nights, falling roughly between December 25th and January 6th, were considered a liminal time when the spirits world drew near. One such alpine specter is Frau Perchta, known in Austria and Bavaria as a kind of winter witch or goddess. On a frosty 12th night, one might imagine Perchta gliding through a silent village, perhaps in two guises. Some legends say Perchta has a dual nature. To the diligent and pure of heart, she appears as a beautiful lady in white, blessing homes and leaving silver coins for those who have toiled hard all year. But to the lazy and disobedient, she shows herself as a haggard crone with wild hair draped in rags, wielding a knife beneath her skirt. Perchta's lore, admittedly, is among the more frightening. It was said she would slit open the bellies of those who hadn't properly completed their spinning or chores, and fill the body with straw as punishment. In truth, these gruesome details were likely spun to scare children, and especially young girls who were supposed to finish their wool spinning by Yuletide into obeying their elders. Around the hearth, grandmothers would wag a finger and warn, "Better finish your work, or Frau Perchta would come." But much like Krampus, modern understanding has defamed Perchta into more of a cautionary tale than a literal threat. In some towns, people even dress up as Perchta's entourage of monsters, in processions to drive out evil spirits after New Year's, a bit like a localized version of Krampus Run. A related figure in Germany is Frau Holle, also known as Hoda or Hoda, who has a gentler reputation. In the fairy tale collected by the Brothers Grimm, Frau Holle is a sky-dwelling grandmotherly woman who makes snow fall on earth by shaking out her feather bed. When her down feathers fly, they turn into snowflakes drifting from the heavens. Many German people still say Frau Holle is making her bed whenever the first snow of the year begins to twirl down. If you venture outside during a calm snowfall, you might feel as though you're standing inside a giant snow globe, being gently fluffed by an unseen hand above. A comforting, almost sleepy sensation. Frau Holle's tale teaches kindness in hard work. An industrious, kind girl falls down a well into Frau Holle's magical realm and earns gold for her service, while her lazy, cruel stepsister later tries the same and earns nothing but pitch for her bad behavior. Yet, even in this, Frau Holle is fair and just, rewarding the good and punishing the wicked. In parts of the Alpine region, Hoda or Perchta were often linked to the wild hunt, leading ghostly processions through the sky alongside Odin or other phantoms. But indoors, by the fire, families prefer to imagine the kindly Frau Holle sprinkling snow, making the world clean and white for Christmas. To honor her, some folks left a small portion of their supper outside at night during the 12 days, a bit of porridge or milk bread as an offering to the furious host of spirits as she led, hoping to appease them. Thus satiated, Frau Holle would ensure the household's prosperity for the years to come. Moving west to the British Isles, we find winter's darkness populated with its own playful spirits. In Wales, on certain nights around Christmas and New Year's, you might hear singing approaching your door and open it to confront the Marie Lwyd, the Great Mare, one of the strangest yet most enchanting traditions of winter. The Marie Lwyd is essentially a puppet made from a real horse's skull, cleaned white, set upon a pole, and draped in a flowing white sheet decorated with ribbons and bells. A talented individual hiding under the sheet operates the snapping jaw of the skull. Late at night, a group of revelers bearing the Lwyd travels from house to house. At each threshold, they engage the household in a battle of rhymes. The Lwyd party sings clever verses requesting entry and refreshment, and the occupants respond with their own witty verses denying them. Back and forth it goes, a musical duel, with the horse's skull clacking its jaw in agreement to its team's lines. It's all in good fun. The aim is to outwit the other with creativity and humor. Finally, if the Lwyd troop wins, and they usually arrange to, the household loses and must let the ghostly horse and company inside. Amid cheers, the Lwyd prances in, the bells on her sheet jingling. Children may squeal at the spooky visage of the skull, but they know it's only pretend, a much-awaited bit of winter excitement. Once inside, the visitors are given ale, hot cider, or some refreshments, and perhaps a seat by the fire. They bring luck and prosperity by their presence. It is believed chasing away any bad spirits with their boisterous singing and laughter. The Lwyd custom, though somewhat eerie, is beloved in South Wales as a symbol of communal joy, neighbors coming together to share in the season's mirth and to keep old folklore alive. The image of that pale horse's skull, decked in bright bows, knocking on doors under the cold weather moon, is indeed like something out of a dream or a nightmare, but ultimately it leaves behind warmth, friendship, and an abundance of poetic jokes. In Ireland, the day after Christmas, St. Stephen's Day, December 26th, historically saw groups of boys going door to door in a custom known as hunting the wren. These wren boys, dressed in old coats or costumes of straw, carried a bush decorated with ribbons and holly, on which they tied a small effigy of a wren, the tiny bird at the center of the tradition. Long ago, a real wren might have been hunted and tied to the bush, as the wren was considered treacherous in myths. One legend said a chattering wren betrayed the hiding place of Saint Stephen, leading to his martyrdom. But in more recent times, a fake wren or no wren at all is used, simply symbolizing the tradition. The wren boys, wearing face paint or masks of straw, parade the bush through the village, singing the wren song. The wren, the king of all birds, St. Stephen's Day was caught in the furs. Although he is little, his honor is great. Jump up, me lads, and give us a treat. In exchange for singing and performing little dances or music, perhaps fiddle and tin whistle tunes, the boys ask for coins or sweets at each house. Please to give us a penny to bury the wren. The collected money traditionally would host a village dance that night or be donated. The custom is fading now, but still alive in pockets of Ireland, revived as a cultural celebration. If you close your eyes, you can almost see it. The winter sun low in the sky on December 26th, your breath visible in the chill, and down the lane comes a merry rabble of children in motley attires, waving green branches brightened with ribbons. They sing at your doorstep in high, sweet voices about the tiny wren, and you drop a few coins into their box with a smile. As they march off to the next house, you find that the brief visit has left you smiling too, another thread of winter folklore weaving community together. Across Europe, many such mumming and wassailing traditions exist, where people dress up or disguise themselves and visit neighbors or the local manor, singing song, reciting verses, and demanding hospitality. The term wassail comes from the Old English toad wassail, meaning be in good health. Wassailers would carry a large wassail bowl of hot spice ale or cider and go house to house sharing it, or they'd sing wassailing carols to be invited in for food and drink. One old song goes, "Here we come a wassailing among the leaves so green. Here we come a wandering so fair to be seen." The spirit of these customs is clearly akin to trick or treat, but instead of asking for candy under threat of mischief, winter mummers offer the treat of entertainment and good wishes in return for refreshment. In medieval England, troops of mummers put on short plays or dances, often featuring characters like Father Christmas, St. George, and a dragon, inside the halls of lords and in village squares during the 12 days of Christmas. Faces blackened with soot or hidden by masks, they brought a bit of carnival to the depth of winter. The idea was that during Christmastide, the normal rules relaxed, just as in Saturnalia of old, and people could poke fun at the world, even at their superiors, under cover of disguise. That inversion in celebration not only brightened morale, but was thought to bring luck, as if causing laughter could scare away the winter's darkness itself. In modern times, the echoes of these traditions live in the beloved act of Christmas caroling, where groups go door to door singing carols for their neighbors. Though carolers today usually aren't in costume, beyond perhaps Victorian thing attire for some, they carry forward the essence of wassailing, sharing warmth and cheer through song in exchange for a warm drink, a bite to eat, or simply gratitude. Think of how special it feels to hear voices singing Silent Night or Joy to the World outside your front door on a snowy evening. You invite them in, or at least bring out hot cocoa to keep them warm. This exchange binds the community with goodwill. In this way, the seemingly spookier folklore of Murray Lloyd or Wren Boys isn't so far removed from the holly jolly scenes we know. All are about human connection in the darkest time of year. Now, no winter's tale would be complete without mention of uncanny beings said to lurk specifically during the 12 days of Christmas. In Greek and Balkan folklore, for example, people used to dread the Kalikansari, mischievous Christmas goblins who roam the earth only between Christmas and Epiphany. The rest of the year, these little monsters live deep underground, sawing at the world tree that holds up the earth, trying endlessly to topple it. But for the 12 days, as the story goes, the sun stops moving. The days are imperceptibly lengthening, but still very short. And Christ, being unbaptized until Epiphany, leaves the world in temporary darkness, allowing the Calicanzari to surface. They are typically depicted as small, black, hairy creatures with long tails, more impish than truly dangerous. Some have goat-like features, befitting their chaotic nature. They love to sneak into houses at night, through chimneys or keyholes, and play pranks, souring the milk, scattering ashes on the floor, braiding the tail of the farm animals together, snuffing out the hearth fire, or stealing sausages from the pan. A homeowner might awake to find chairs upturned or muddy footprints across the kitchen, evidence that the Calicanzari visited while all slept. Though pesky, they're not very smart. Greek families devised numerous clever ways to ward them off or confuse them. One popular method was to keep a fire burning in the fireplace all night long, throughout the 12 days, a continuous Yule log, so the goblins can't enter from that route. Another trick: since Calicantaries are said to be obsessive counters, people would toss a colander, a sieve-like bowl, onto their doorsteps or hang it outside. The goblin would feel compelled to stop and count the holes, but because it can only count to 2, being unable to say 3, a holy number, it would be stuck in an endless loop of 1, 2, 1, 2, until the roosters crowed at dawn, and thus it would fail to enter the house. In some places, people kept a smelly shoe burning in the fireplace. The foul stench was believed to repel the creatures. Others would mark their doors with black cross on Christmas Eve, or scatter blessed basil leaves around for protection. These folk practices, blending Christian and pagan imagery, show how seriously people once took the idea of these seasonal pests. But like all such tales, over time, the Calicanzari have become more of a fun story for children. Greek kids might get a chuckle hearing how a goblin got distracted, counting leaves, or choke on a lump of honey fritters left as bait. On Epiphany, when a priest comes to bless each home with holy water, that ritual is said to chase the Calicanzari back underground for good. And wouldn't you know it, by then the goblin finds that the world tree they were sawing has healed itself while they were gone, so they must start their mischief anew for another year, never succeeding in their destructive plan. Thus, balance is restored and life goes on. A similar being in Serbian and Bulgarian tradition is the Karakonjula, or tavern demon, that also prowls the unbaptized days of late December, pouncing on travelers at night, riding them or leading them astray. Folk remedies against these often include garlic, church incense, or staying indoors at night until after Epiphany. From the frozen north to the sunny Mediterranean, it seems every culture had some concept of beware the winter spirits, but in nearly all cases, these spirits could be foiled by simple good sense, and they recede in the face of holy or hopeful symbols. The fright they gave only made the eventual relief sweeter and more celebratory. Heading further north again, into the realm of ice and snow, we meet more mythical creatures of winter, some malevolent, some benign. In the Sami folklore of Lapland, for instance, there were tales of Stalu, an evil spirit or giant that lurked during the polar night, which Sami herders had to outwit or flee. In more urban legend form, places like Iceland and Scandinavia talk of a Christmas cat. In Iceland called Yule Lads, a huge, ferocious black cat said to stalk the countryside on Christmas Eve and eat anyone who had not received new clothes to wear for the feast. This peculiar tale likely started as incentive for farm workers to finish processing the autumn wool before Christmas. Those who did would receive a new garment from their employer. Those who didn't would go without and thus symbolically be prey for the monstrous cat. To modern ears, it's a bizarre concept, but Icelandic children still smile knowingly when they get a new sweater or socks from mom and dad, so the Christmas cat won't get me. The Yule Lads was described as the pet of the giantess Grýla, who was also mother to the famous Yule Lads. One can picture the immense feline prowling through snowdrift, its eyes glowing like candles, peering into lamp-lit cottages to see what people got for Christmas. Fortunately, most everyone has some new item of clothing after the holidays, so the cat slinks away hungry and nobody is devoured. Like many frightful folklore figures, the Christmas cat's dark threat has a positive effect, encouraging generosity, ensuring even the poorest get some new garment, and hard work, finishing the year's chores in time. Let's now visit the land that gave birth to that fearsome feline, Iceland, a place with some of the most whimsical and beloved Christmas folklore characters, the 13 Yule Lads and their kin. Envision a remote Icelandic farmstead around the 1700s. The winter nights are long and black, the northern lights sometimes rippling overhead. Children have been warned all year to behave, or wicked Grýla come down from her mountain. Grýla is an ogress, a hideous giantess with horns, hooves, and an appetite for naughty kids. Each Christmas, legend says, Grýla awakens with a terrible hunger. She sets out with a large sack to hunt for misbehaving children to boil in her cauldron stew. Needless to say, this threat keeps youngsters on their best behavior. Grýla's husband, Lapalola, is a lazy oaf who mostly stays home in their cave, perhaps too slow to join her man-eating escapades. But the couple's offspring, they are a rambunctious bunch. Grýla and Lapalola have 13 sons, known as the Yule Lads. Originally, the Yule Lads were portrayed much like trolls or pranking spirits, and each had a mischievous speciality. Starting on the night of December 12th, the Yule Lads come down from the mountains one by one, each on his own day, until Christmas. Then, after Christmas, They depart again one by one in the order they came, finishing on January 6th. This means for 13 nights, Icelandic children get to experience a fun ritual. Each evening, they set a shoe on the windowsill of their bedroom, and if they'd been good, the visiting Yule Lad will leave a small gift in the shoe by morning, perhaps a candy or a little toy. If they've been bad, well, they might find raw potato instead. Each Yule Lad has a distinct name and personality, often quite comical. There's Sheepcote Claude, the first to arrive on December 12th, who has stiff legs and harasses farmers' sheep, though he's too clumsy to catch any. Next come Gollygawk, who hides in barns and waits for an opportunity to slurp the froth off the farmers' milk pails. Then Stubby, an unusually short lad who steals pans to eat the crust left in them. After him is Spoonlicker, a lanky fellow who sneaks in to lick wooden spoons. His diet is so meager, he's rather thin. He's followed by Pot Scraper, who literally scrapes leftovers from pots, and Bowl Licker, who hides under beds waiting for someone to put down their wooden bowl so he can snatch it and lick it clean. One of the more frightening sound is Door Slammer, who loves to bang doors loudly at night, startling sleepers. And who could forget Sky Gobbler, who has an insatiable craving for skyr, Icelandic yogurt, and will raid pantries to guzzle it. Then arrives Sausage Swiper, known to hide in rafters and snatch sausages that are being smoked. Window Peeper comes peeking in windows, looking for things to steal, not unlike a benign burglar. Doorway Sniffer has a huge nose and loves the smell of leverbrød, a traditional fried bread, so he'll sniff his way to any source of baked goods. The last two are Meat Hook, who lowers a hook down chimneys to grab meat that might be hanging from the rafters, and finally, Candle Stealer, who follows children to steal their candles. Back in olden days, a candle was a prized thing, and edible too, since they were made of tallow. Candle Stealer comes on Christmas Eve, the last of the lot. It's easy to see these characters were crafted to poke fun at human foibles, gluttony, stealing, noise, and to explain small household mysteries. Who ate the leftovers? Where did my sausage go? Today, the Yule Lads have been gentled considerably. In 1746, authorities even decreed that Icelandic parents should stop scaring their kids witless with tales of Grýla and her man-eating habits. Over time, the Yule Lads evolved into more jovial Santa-like figures. They wear red costumes and are portrayed with rosy cheeks, still pranksters, but more impish than threatening. Modern Icelandic children cherish the Yule Lads in the same way others do Santa. In downtown Reykjavik each year, the Yule Lads come to visit and entertain kids, often giving out candy and being quite friendly. No spoon licking of strangers' utensils these days. But the old stories are still known and loved for their silliness. And woe to the child who leaves his shoe muddy on the windowsill. Spoonlicker might leave a potato with a note saying, "Clean up your act." It's all in good humor, reinforcing good behavior, and a celebration of Iceland's distinct folklore. Oh, and that giant Yule cat that prowls the countryside? He is said to be Grila's pet. While the good children are getting presents from the Yule Lads, all children also get some article of new clothing before Christmas, specifically to satisfy the Yule cat. The idea is that everyone should have something new to wear, perhaps a charitable nudge to ensure even poor children got new mittens or socks. If someone foolishly doesn't, the Yule cat might decide they are lazy and in the dark of Christmas night devour them, or at least their dinner. "You better finish knitting that sweater for little John," an Icelandic mother might have teased, "or the Yule cat will take him." Today, one popular Christmas song in Iceland humorously warns about jólakötturinn, ending on the note that one must get new clothes, a cozy way to justify all those gifted woolen sweaters. So even this fearsome feline has become a beloved quirk of the season, often depicted in decorations as a big smiling cat wearing a scarf, clearly having gotten his new clothing. He won't eat anyone. Traveling east again, beyond the Urals into the frosty Siberian taiga, and further into Asia, winter spirits take on different forms. In Japan, for example, there isn't a Christmas tradition per se, aside from modern Santa-san, who is popular commercially. But winter's ghostly tales do exist. One such tale whispered on cold nights is that of Yuki-onna, the snow woman. Japanese folklore describes Yuki-onna as an ethereal, otherworldly, beautiful woman with long black hair and skin as pale as snow. She wears a white kimono and is often seen on winter nights when snow is falling gently. Yuki-onna might appear to travelers lost in blizzards, sometimes to lead them astray to their freezing doom, other times to spare or even save them, depending on the story. In one famous account recorded by Lafcadio Hearn, 2 woodcutters were overtaken by a blizzard and sought shelter in a hut. In the middle of the night, the younger man awoke to see the hut's door blown open and a strange woman, Yuki-onna, bending over the older man, breathing in icy mist onto him that killed him in his sleep. She then approached the young man to do the same, but seeing his youth and beauty, she felt pity. She let him live on the condition he never speak of what he saw. He swore, and she vanished. Years later, that young man met and married a lovely pale-skinned woman, Mei Oyuki, with whom he had children. One night, he remarked how she reminded him of the mysterious snow maiden who spared his life. Instantly, his wife's face transformed into Yuki-onna's terrible beauty. She revealed herself to be that very snow spirit. She was furious he broke his promise, yet could not kill him because of their children. So melting into a mist, Yuki-onna disappeared forever, leaving the man heartbroken and forever cautious of the winter wind. Such ghost stories, while not exactly Christmas lore, are told around winter hearth in Japan, with the same eerie delight as Westerners tell Dickens' A Christmas Carol or other ghostly tales on Christmas Eve. A tradition in Victorian England was to tell ghost stories during Christmas. Indeed, that's why Charles Dickens wrote his famous spook story of Scrooge seeing spirits on Christmas night. The winter season, with its howling winds, long nights, and flickering firelight, seems to invite a healthy scare or two amid the cheer. Finally, we come nearly full circle to the turning of the new year and beyond, where winter's folklore gradually gives way to spring's renewal. But even at New Year's, the world over, you'll find custom to ensure bad spirits are banished and good luck invited. In Scotland, the celebration of Hogmanay, New Year's Eve, carries an old practice called first footing. Just after midnight, the first person to cross the threshold into a home should be a dark-haired man bearing symbolic gifts: a piece of coal for warmth, shortbread for black bun, fruitcake for food, maybe a wee dram of whiskey for good cheer. This supposedly brings good fortune to the house for the year. The origins are unclear, but likely tied to the Vikings or Celtic ideas of paying tribute to household spirits. In any case, it's still observed in parts of Scotland today, neighbors visiting each other just after midnight on New Year's with token gifts and good luck greetings. In Japan, during Omisoka, New Year's Eve, there is a custom somewhat akin to a purifying folklore ritual. At midnight, 108 bells are tolled at Baptist temples throughout the country, ringing out the 108 human sins or worldly desires and ushering in a clean slate for the new year. Families laugh and smile, having eaten warm tashikoshi soba noodle for long life, and they perhaps recall that any roaming demon-like spirits have just been chased off, not by temple bells, in folk belief, but by men dressed as devils in a few regions. For example, in Akita Prefecture of Japan, on New Year's Eve, the Namahage makes his round. As mentioned earlier, the Namahage is portrayed by local young men who don fearsome oni, ogre masks, and straw cloaks, carrying wooden knives or big sticks. They go door to door, much like Krampus or Perkta, entering homes where family gatherings are in full swing. In a booming voice, the Namahage will ask, "Are there any crybabies here? Any lazy children around?" The parents chuckle and assure the demon that their children have been good and hard-working. The children might be momentarily scared by the monstrous visitor, but they also know it's a ritual. Their parents will appease the Namahage with sake and food and promise to keep their kids diligent. Then the demon, satisfied, offers blessings for the new year and leaves to continue his rounds. After all, the name Namahage comes from the phrase meaning blister peelers, referencing an old admonition to idlers who sat too long by the fire and got Namahage, heat blisters. The demon would come peel those right off as punishment. It's another one of these fascinating flips, a scary custom that ultimately encourages positive behavior and community bonding. These days, Namahage is a treasured part of local culture, and even recognized by the UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage. What child doesn't feel a tiny thrill of pride after enduring the pretend scolding of a namahage and then being told by their parents, "See, you were brave and you've been good. Now the namahage will bring you luck this year." The tradition turns fear into virtue and then into pride and relief. 12th night in the return of light. And so at last we arrived at 12th night, the eve of Epiphany, January 5th, the final page of our folklore journey. In many cultures, this night marks the official end of the Christmas season. It is a time for one more festive gathering before ordinary life resumes and winter's grind continues. In Old England, 12th night was celebrated with masques and songs, and a special 12th cake containing a bean and a pea. Those who found them in their slice would be crowned the Lord and Lady of Misrule for the night's revelries. It was a bit of Saturnalia revisited. Servants and masters dancing together. Social roles playfully inverted one last time. Throughout Europe, Epiphany is a time rich in custom. In some places, people chalk their doors with the initial of the three kings to bless the house. In others, like parts of Italy, it is the night that La Befana, the kindly Christmas witch, flies down on her broomstick with a sack of gifts. Let us pause to savor the story of La Befana, which beautifully closes the loop from the Magi back to the idea of a magical gift bringer. According to Italian legend, Befana was an old woman living in a little village in Judea. One cold night, she had a knock on her door. It was the three wise men traveling in search of the Christ child. They asked for directions and rest. She hosted them, being a very hospitable and neat lady. They invited her to join their quest. "Come with us. A bright star is guiding us to a holy child who will be the King of Kings." But Befana was reluctant to leave her snug home in her sweepings. She was always busy with her broom sweeping dust. After the kings departed, she reconsidered. What an opportunity she missed. So she hurried after them with her broom in hand. To help the new mother clean, of course, a thoughtful soul that she was. She also took a basket of baked goods as gifts for the baby. But alas, Befana lost her way and never found the stable in Bethlehem. Ever since then, the story goes, she flies on her broom each year on the eve of Epiphany, searching every house for the Christ child and leaving gifts to all good children she finds, because the Christ child can be found in the goodness of every child. To Italian children, La Befana is a beloved figure, as much as Babbo Natale. On the night of January 5th, they hang up stockings by the hearth or set out shoes, and Befana comes down the chimney to fill them. She is usually imagined as a smiling grandma-like witch, soot-stained from the chimneys, flying on a broom, wearing a black shawl and skirt full of patches. In her sack are candies, chocolates, and small toys for those who have been good, and lumps of coal for the naughty. But since Italian parents are soft-hearted, the coal is often actually sugar candy that looks like coal, so even the naughty get a sweet in disguise. Befana sweeps the floor before she leaves, symbolically sweeping away the problems of the old year. In some regions, people even burn small Befana dolls or effigies on Epiphany, signifying the clearing out of the old to welcome the new. The Befana's name likely comes from Epifania, Epiphany in Italian, but people also connect her to ancient Roman goddess Strenia, who gave New Year's gifts, hence the Italian word strena for a gift. Thus, in Befana, we see a perfect melding of pagan and Christian imagery, a witch on a broom doing Santa-like duties on a holy night, leaving both joy and a hint of judgment. La Befana is also a reminder that Christmas, or its cycle of feast, is about love and giving, as she endlessly searches for the divine child and ends up distributing her sweets to other children along the way. As Epiphany dawns on January 6th, in many places, one final feast is enjoyed. In Spanish countries, this is when the Roca de Reyes sweetbread with a baby figurine is served. In Italy, it's when panettone or Befana cookies are eaten. Children play with the last of their holiday gifts before school begins anew. The world feels quiet, the holiday magic receding, but something is different. The days are ever so slightly longer now than they were in late December. Sunset comes a few minutes later, dawn a bit earlier. Birds know it. One might catch the tentative chirp of a chickadee on a bright cold morning, sensing that winter's midpoint is near. The first week of January often brings the harshest cold, but people endure it with a newfound optimism because they carry in their hearts the glow of all the stories, celebrations, and blessings the midwinter season gave them. In a village in Greece, after Epiphany Mass, young men take the cross that the priest has blessed and lead a procession to the river. The priest flings the cross into the icy water, and the men dive in to retrieve it. It is said whoever finds the cross will have good fortune and health. This blessing of the waters is done to ensure no calicanzari remain. They hate holy water, and indeed the Greek proverb says they scatter on Epiphany crying, "Leave quickly, the Virgin is coming," meaning the light of Christ in the church drives them off. And so the waters, symbolic of the world, are purified and made safe again. In Russia, on Orthodox Epiphany, January 19th by the Julian calendar, believers cut cross-shaped holes in the ice of lakes and rivers and dunk themselves 3 times to commemorate the baptism of Jesus, a bracing but spiritually powerful ritual of renewal. Everywhere, one way or another, the winter folklore and festivities conclude with the triumph of light and goodness over darkness and chaos. The homes that were bright with candles and hearth return to their normal glow. The evergreens, Yule trees, Christmas trees, mistletoe, and holly wreath, they brought their life into our homes, and now, having served their purpose, get taken down. Some keep them till Candlemas in February, but many say farewell at Epiphany. People gather the dry needles and branches and perhaps burn them in a bonfire, releasing the last fragrant essence of Christmas back to the sky. There is a bit of sadness in that, to be sure. but also in understanding. The wheel of the seasons must turn. Spring will come, and then summer. Before we know it, harvest and autumn will roll around, and those evergreens will start to look mighty inviting again as the air grows chill. The folklore repeats year after year because it reflects something enduring in human experience. Now, our storybook journey, too, must draw to a gentle close. The long winter's night outside is still and silent. Snow drift under the moonlight, glowing bluish white. Inside, perhaps you sit with eyes growing heavy, imagining all the wondrous beings and warm traditions we have explored. The fire in the hearth has burned low, a few ember pulsing a soft red. As you lay your head back and pull a cozy blanket up, think of the thread that runs through all these tales we've heard. It is the golden thread of hope and kindness, whether it's Odin's rewarding kindness from the sky, St. Nicholas secretly helping the needy, the Magi bearing precious gifts, or the kindly Befana leaving sweets. The message is that generosity and compassion are the greatest light in the dark of winter. The frightening figures, Krampus, Perkta, the Kalakansari, they serve to remind us to be good and brave, and not to lose heart. And the playful ones, the Yule Lads, the Lwyd and La Sailors, they teach us to laugh and celebrate, to be community, to share joy even in hard times. Outside, a cold wind might be blowing, but we know the light is returning day by day. In the morning, perhaps, you will see the tracks of a fox or rabbit in the fresh snow, like little footprints of unseen visitors that passed in the night. Could it be some friendly sprite? Or house gnomes checking in on you? Who's to say it's not? In the dream time of winter, the line between reality and folklore blurs softly, like snow flurries dissolving into a mist. As we drift to sleep, we carry with us the ancient comfort that our ancestors wove into these stories, that even the longest night we are not alone. Our imaginations, our families, our communities, and perhaps a few benevolent spirits are right there with us, keeping the darkness at bay. Sleep well now, under the enchantment of these winter tales. May your dreams be visited by jolly Santas and beautiful snow queens, by trotting reindeers and friendly house elves. In the distance of your slumber, hear faint ho ho ho, the playful door slam of a Yule lad, the far-off ring of a church bell, the sweet melody of carolers. Feel the warmth of the Yule log and the promise it holds that dawn and spring will come again. For now, the world is peaceful and magic still hangs in the air like a fine frost. In this cozy calm, as one storybook closes, a new day will soon open. Bring with it the light. Good night, and may all the blessings of winter folklore, love, hope, joy, and a touch of wonder be with you as you rest.